Welcome to CitiesSpeak. I'm your host, Clarence Anthony. Today, we offer an exciting episode having two influential leaders who are deeply invested in the economic success of American cities, as well as American small businesses. So, in a nutshell, it's all about economic development. It's all about job creation. It's all about a sense of place and the role it plays in a successful city. Our first guest is Mayor Kate Gallego, the dynamic 62nd mayor of Phoenix, and only the second woman to lead the city. She previously served on the Phoenix City Council from 2014 to 2018. She's been a trailblazer in promoting sustainable urban development, supporting small businesses, and driving economic growth in one of the fastest growing cities in America. If you go there this week, there's a new building next week in Phoenix. Under her leadership, Phoenix has continued to advance in infrastructure, public transportation, community engagement, and making it a thriving hub for innovation and opportunity. So, what a wonderful community. And you're going to hear about how she is helping to keep that community vibrant. Over the last couple of decades, Phoenix has experienced substantial population growth, increasing by nearly 24% from 2000 to 2022, reaching over 1.6 million residents. How has this rapid growth impacted the city's economic development strategies and actually the impact on small business?
Small business is still very much big business in the city of Phoenix. We know that that's where the majority of our jobs are, and we try to spend our time supporting our great small businesses. When I think of some programs we do in Phoenix that might be useful to other cities, one of my favorites is our Mayor's Small Business Legacy Program. We recognize businesses that have been in our community for more than 25 years and just thank them for helping build the great city that is Phoenix. One of my favorites was Mrs. White's Golden Rule Cafe. Mrs. White, is now 100 and still going strong. Incredible fried chicken. We're recording this as I'm getting a little bit hungry and just thinking about the great food that is not that far from
Me too.
City Hall. Fried chicken sounds pretty good today. So that's one I would recommend to other city officials. Another is our great partnership with the Better Business Bureau, which helps with small micro loans. We had a woman who worked in events for a long time, and we worked with her to create an event venue space where we could have quinceañeras and weddings more. And that was another neat success in that area.
No, that is great. Did you see real growth for employment from the local communities because of the growth and engagement of the small businesses?
Yes, it's the overwhelming jobs in Phoenix, and we have seen incredible expansion. City Hall is in downtown Phoenix. We have dramatically more restaurants here than before COVID. And I don't know why I have food on my mind today, but still going strong. But they're so much, literally and figuratively, the flavor of our city.
You guys really do celebrate food, and that I heard that you are a foodie. The fact that you launched the official cocktail of Phoenix. How did this work to support the community, the businesses? Why was it such an important thing for you to lift up that industry?
In the city of Phoenix, we have a great culinary scene, including craft cocktails. We wanted the world and our local residents to know more about the great talent we have here, the small businesses, and the incredible flavors. So we launched a city cocktail. We wanted it to include local ingredients. For example, chiltepin is Arizona's native pepper. Has a great flavor to it. We're also known for things like prickly pear, which is a cactus fruit that's sweet and incredible. We want our residents to go out and enjoy local products more, and we also want to attract more visitors. We're well known for incredible weather, golf, sports, but our food scene maybe needed a little bit more additional attention. I was a little bit inspired by the Manhattan cocktail, which is now so well known. The Manhattan recipe is actually 212, the same as their area code, 2 shots whiskey, 1 vermouth, 2 dashes of bitter. Our area code is 602. We didn't want 6 shots of anything. But we did end up announcing the cocktail on 602 Day, the day we named for our area code, but we celebrated local businesses and really, again, tried to promote small businesses on a day that might not have been as busy for them. So we did this during Final Four, announced the Final Four while we were hosting the men's NCAA Final Four. Our community voted, and we have an incredible cocktail, the Phoenix. So we're excited for NLC to come out and taste it.
Oh, we can't wait. I love visiting Phoenix. Now, my final question is, imagine you're talking to a group of mayors. What advice would you give them about creating and stimulating small business and creating economic development opportunities within your community? What is the mixture that you have used and would recommend for others?
One of the things that's been most important to me is just being a connector. There's so many incredible resources, but people may not know what Wells Fargo offers to our small businesses, or Arizona State University can help with your supply chain challenges. The class can come in and do marketing. So just getting that information out can be really helpful. We also really try to showcase them everywhere in the city. If you visit Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, you will see one of my favorite local bookstores represented, as well as Melrose Pharmacy, one of our local small businesses that's an independently owned pharmacy. Joya Kaiser does a lot of local arts and crafts for sale there. And when we have visible city property, we want to showcase the incredible small businesses we are home to.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much. This has been so valuable, and I'm sure all of our listeners on CitiesSpeak is going to enjoy. But I think most of all, I think a lot of folks are going to be getting on the airplane all over America to come and experience some of the places that you've shared with us today. Thank you again. Really appreciate this.
Thank you, Clarence.
Joining us today is Roby Schapira, who is a Senior Vice President and Diverse Segments Leader for Small Business at Wells Fargo. With over 2 decades of experience at Wells Fargo, Roby leads initiatives to support diverse small business owners, including those from minority communities, veterans, as well as LGBTQ communities. His dedication to fostering inclusivity and providing financial resources and education to underserved segments has been instrumental in empowering countless entrepreneurs to achieve their business goals. Roby, let's talk a little bit about your journey, because I think it is amazing that you're doing the work that you're doing based upon, I heard you started as a part-time bank teller?
I did. Yeah, actually here in the greater Phoenix area. So I'm here right now in greater Phoenix, which works out great for Mayor Gallego and I to be on this podcast with you. I grew up here. And so I'll talk about it later, but my family actually started a business in 1953 that my dad is still the chairman of today. And so I started at 17 years old as a part-time teller on the border of Phoenix and Scottsdale, and just luckily found a company that, honestly, if I were to give you one reason why I've been with Wells Fargo over 26 years, this is a place where when you work hard, people notice. And so I've been really grateful to have started a career as a part-time teller while in high school and still be here 26 years later.
That is a great story. It reminds me of one of my, well, I shouldn't say my favorite singers, but you started from the bottom, now you're here.
Yeah.
I think that's Drake, but I'm not sure. But that's a wonderful story. And Wells Fargo is a great partner to the National League of Cities. And we appreciate this opportunity to talk with you about what is happening at Wells Fargo and in communities all over America. You know, Arizona specifically is home to more than 600,000 small businesses. How is Wells Fargo investing and, in fact, supporting small businesses and the backbone of the American economy?
Yeah, I'll give you a few stats. The first is nationwide, we care for over 3.3 million small business customers. We estimate that, to give or take, about half of them identify as ethnically diverse, and about 40% are women. Hence why I have a job leading our efforts nationwide to serve specifically diverse and women-owned businesses. But let me talk about Arizona for a minute, since Mayor Gallego is there on the desk. I know, as you say, Clarence, there's give or take 600,000 business owners in the state of Arizona. We bank in the greater Phoenix area over 100,000 of them. And so, it's really important that we show up in the local communities and markets that we serve. And that is a huge focus for me and my team, is authentically showing up. If I were to break it down, my team in what we call diverse customer segments. So, I think folks are really used to corporations or organizations like Wells Fargo focusing on the DE&I internally. How do we promote and support, and mentor, and grow our talent in all spaces? But this focus externally on our customers really started as an expansion of Wells Fargo's DE&I efforts after the murder of George Floyd, and wanting to really show up and put our commitment front and center. We created groups like mine that sit in the business. So I sit in the business with the small and business banking team, and our job is to ensure that Wells Fargo better serves diverse and women-owned businesses. The example, our first priority is access to capital. How do we literally lend more and connect business owners more with resources that increase business owners' access to capital? We do work around barriers to entry. So as an example, if your first language, like many business owners in Arizona, is Spanish, starting an account is intimidating. Starting a business account is extremely intimidating. And how do we smooth that process? Not just with, Spanish-speaking bankers or, Spanish resources, but also authentically welcoming and showing up as a community bank, both national and local. And, the example I alluded to earlier, I started my career at Wells Fargo 26 years ago. My family started a business in 1953, a business my grandfather started with my great uncle that, as I shared, my dad is still the chairman of today. It's a scaffolding company. And actually, Mayor Gallego was at the 70th anniversary of that business when my father announced his retirement as CEO. So the mayor is just as involved in businesses as she said she was, like literally showing up. It meant a lot to my family that she decided to make that commitment. But I'll tell you about one example in Arizona that I'm especially proud of. There are these organizations that I imagine many of your listeners are aware of called CDFIs, or Community Development Financial Institutions. These organizations that are often nonprofits do lots of things, but in the small business world, they incubate business owners. And there's one in Arizona called Grameen. That's GRAMEEN. And actually, Mayor Gallego joined us for a ribbon cutting because we announced earlier this year in May a $3.25 million grant for Grameen, which is a CDFI that primarily serves women entrepreneurs, which is a really important topic for us at Wells Fargo because the financial system has not always been welcoming to women. There was a time where women were required to have male co-signers to get credit. That was still true in the late 80s. And so women entrepreneurs today, examples like our support of Grameen help to throw the door open and to share that, banks like Wells Fargo really are here and wanting entrepreneurs of every group, of every community. And like I shared earlier, our goal is to put our commitments front and center and for entrepreneurs to see.
Yeah, I mean, that is very helpful. And I'm sure our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing about the services and how Wells Fargo is showing up in those communities. Let me ask you, what have you seen as the biggest challenge? I mean, you talked about capital for small businesses and women-owned, minority-owned, LGBTQ-owned businesses. What do you see, and how can a city help with that challenge?
Yeah. Clarence, I've been in small business a long time, over 15 years at Wells Fargo. And so a lot of my job is to listen to business owners. And as an example, the National Federation of Independent Businesses just reposted their optimism report today. We saw an uptick in optimism. One of the things I notice is when business owners are optimistic, the things that they cite as their chief challenges are things that are out of their control. So things like the economy or regulatory impacts. When businesses are struggling, they talk about things that are in their control or should be in their control, things like cash flow, finding more customers. And so I have to say, for 15 years, the thing that we hear over and over is access to capital. And so that means a lot to us as a financial institution. We can play a role in how we evaluate businesses, opening the credit box, looking at alternative forms of alternative credit history or alternative data in the credit underwriting process. But one of the keys in 2022, we launched something called the Small Business Resource Navigator. It helped us solve a problem. The problem being, we give millions of dollars to CDFIs through, you may have heard something called our Open for Business Fund. It was how we leveraged the over $400 million the SBA gave Wells Fargo for creating PPP loans during the pandemic, during round one of PPP. We give literally hundreds of millions of dollars to CDFIs. But at the time, we were not introducing clients or customers to CDFIs because we needed a compliant way to do so. And so in 2022, we launched something called the Small Business Resource Navigator. You can find it at bizresourcenavigator.com. And what it does is it lets a business owner say, I'm looking for support, maybe lending, maybe financial education, or what we call in the industry technical assistance. And they create a profile and get matched with over 100 different CDFIs across the country, including several national serving CDFIs. Cool thing for us is we've introduced 4,000 of our customers that way to be connected with these resources. Because the truth is that we want those businesses to incubate and get stronger and then come back to us when they're ready. But a lot of what business owners hear from a financial institution is just the no to credit. Especially as they're first getting started, this helps us to say no or let's continue this conversation. We're here to serve you. And so I think that is critically important, especially when we're talking about ethnically diverse and women-owned businesses who typically start with less capital due to generational wealth impacts. And so the benefit of a Small Business Resource Navigator to a business owner of a diverse background, we hypothesized that we would see more diverse, that it would disproportionately, we would see more diverse. And that was correct, give or take more than half, almost 2/3 of the businesses that have used that platform, the Small Business Resource Navigator, have self-identified diverse. But back to your earlier question, what it does is it helps a business owner at every stage of their journey. When they're just starting out, find their first loan or their first piece of advice, and they can do that because of support that we gave them at Wells Fargo.
The thing is, I think it was right in our face every day during the pandemic, where especially the small and minority-owned businesses were impacted significantly. I heard data points of 60-70% of those businesses in some communities had to close. So there's no question that having that kind of resource to be able to determine and show how do you come back, and you guys were there for a lot of those small businesses. And I think a lot of people, especially National League of Cities, we recognize that. Well, I wanted to ask you, if you were sitting down with some local leaders throughout America, and they asked you a question around how should they support their small businesses and connecting them to financial institutions, or I'll just reframe it. If you were mayor, what would you do to connect those small businesses to financial institutions in a way that would be integrated in a substantive way into the economic movement of the community?
Yeah. Thanks, Clarence, for that question. I think mayors can do a lot to help corporations like Wells Fargo do the right thing and really show up in communities. A couple things. When a mayor calls out to the community, people show up. And so I've heard great stories from, Mayor Shivi in Reno, or, even Mayor Gallego, about how they integrate in the community, how they listen to business owners. And we really care. We're a significant bank in a lot of communities all across the country. And we really care what mayors are hearing from their business owners and how we can help. So involving us in planning is important. If you're not scheduling a meeting and you want a meeting with Wells Fargo, I would love them to reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with our government relations team and make sure that we are having some joint listening sessions, that we're hearing what you're hearing from your constituents. I think secondarily, we try and find that intersection, like the Venn diagram intersection of what we're trying to do and what you're trying to do. A great example, again, I'll use Mary Gallego since she was on this episode of the podcast, is the Greater Phoenix area, according to a report we sponsored called the Impact of Women-Owned Business Report that we've co-delivered with Women Impacting Public Policy and a research firm called Ventureneer, identified Phoenix as the number 5 place in the country to be for women business owners. And you hit a bunch of it, Clarence, earlier, because of what Mary Gallego, the city council, and others are doing to help foster growth. The specific stat is that women-owned businesses had a 13.7% firm growth rate, which puts them, pretty high up in the nation. And so understanding, like for Mayor Gallego, this is a focus for you. You're looking to do this work. So are we. How can we partner together? It's how we find organizations like Grameen to support, because the mayor's investing too, time, resources, energy. You can bring the community together. We would love to be a part of that community building. So just understanding where each mayor's priorities and activities overlap with the work that we're trying to do. I think the third is, it's a great, what I really love about working with our public officials and mayors in particular is it's an ongoing conversation. The answer isn't always that we can find exactly the partnership, but sometimes it is. And I'm really excited when the mayor's doing something that we can literally just jump in on. But the ongoing conversation helps us to really shine in the things that we're doing well. It helps us when things aren't going well to get feedback and to have open dialogue. And it really helps us just to have the credibility to do the work we're trying to do in the community, because that's what mayors have, a lot of credibility with their constituents. And when we can authentically talk about the work that we're doing, a mayor has a lot of power to amplify that message. And that's really important to us.
Well, I got to tell you, this episode of CitiesSpeak has been amazing. It's been informative, really real detail on how the private sector and the public sector can work together when they have the same mission and focus, and that is small business engagement, small business growth, economic development, inclusivity. Also, I think a lot of our listeners will hear and understand that there are residents in their community that get in a career and start as a tailor, and then they end up as a senior vice president and a mayor who is doing fantastic things and creating an inclusive community, a livable community, a community that's vibrant with infrastructure and opportunity. So, Mayor, thank you so much for your time. And Roby, thank you so much for your time and support of Wells Fargo with the National League of Cities.
Our pleasure. Thanks, Clarence.
Thanks for listening to CitiesSpeak with Clarence Anthony. If you like this show, let us know. Share this episode with your friends and make sure to subscribe. We're curious to hear what you think, what you want more of, and how we can improve. If you have feedback or an idea for a guest you'd like Clarence to sit down with, send us your thoughts at citiespeakpodcast@nlc.org. Join us next month for a new episode. Like and subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.